Imagine waking up tomorrow with a strange challenge. You have enough money to buy one house, but instead of choosing one city, you have to buy a house in every single US state. 50 houses, 50 mortgages, 50 property tax bills, 50 insurance policies. And suddenly, the question isn't just how much does a house cost, it's how much would it actually cost to own America? My uncle once told me that if he had to do it all over again, he would never buy a house in California. He wasn't joking. He had watched home prices climb so far that the house he once considered expensive eventually looked cheap compared with what buyers were paying years later. But here's the strange part. If he had moved just a few states away, the same amount of money could have bought something completely different. And that's when you realize something most people don't think about. There isn't really one American housing market. There are 50 different versions of it. In some states, a median-priced home can cost well under $250,000. In others, you're looking at more than $700,000. And that difference can completely change what your life looks like after you buy. Recent Redfin state-level data illustrates just how wide that gap can be. California and Hawaii sit near the top, while states such as Iowa, Ohio, Oklahoma, and West Virginia are dramatically cheaper. So let's do something unusual. Let's imagine we're buying one median-priced home in every state. Not a mansion, not a beachfront property, not some celebrity house, just the kind of home that represents the middle of that state's market. And by the time we reach the final state, the total number becomes almost impossible to ignore. We start in the Northeast. In Massachusetts, a typical home in the data is around $622,000. New York is around $571,000. New Jersey sits around $538,000. Rhode Island is above $500,000. Connecticut is around $416,000. New Hampshire is close to $488,000. And suddenly, before we've even crossed half the country, we've already spent millions. My father used to make a completely different calculation when he talked about buying a house. He wouldn't ask, "Can I afford the house?" He'd ask, "Can I afford the life that comes with the house?" At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. Now I do, because a $500,000 house isn't really a $500,000 decision. It's a mortgage, interest, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, and sometimes years of financial commitments. Now move south. Florida comes in around $411,000 in the same state-level dataset. Virginia is around $426,000. North Carolina is around $368,000. South Carolina is around $378,000. Georgia is around $360,000. Tennessee is around $383,000. And then the numbers begin to fall. Alabama is around $278,000. Kentucky is around $265,000. Mississippi is around $250,000. Louisiana is around $253,000. Arkansas is around $256,000. Suddenly, the same $400,000 budget that feels restrictive in one part of America can feel enormous somewhere else. And this is where my grandfather made a mistake. He spent most of his working life believing that the best financial decision was simply to buy the most house he could reasonably afford. The problem was that reasonably afford changed as the years passed. The mortgage payment stayed manageable, but taxes changed. Insurance changed. Maintenance arrived. And eventually, the house that looked affordable on paper started consuming more of his retirement income than he expected. That's the part people don't see when they compare Zillow listings. The price on the screen is only the beginning. And we're not even at the most expensive states yet. Because when we reach the West, the numbers start doing something very different. In the Midwest, the story changes again. Iowa is around $228,000. Ohio is around $231,000. West Virginia is around $243,000. Michigan is around $248,000. Missouri is around $252,000. Indiana is around $255,000. Wisconsin is around $303,000. Minnesota is around $342,000. Texas is around $336,000. And this is where the comparison gets interesting, because Texas is enormous. Its cities are growing. Its housing markets can look completely different from one another. Yet at the state level, the median price can still sit far below California. That doesn't automatically make Texas cheap, it simply shows how much geography can change the financial equation. My uncle once showed me two houses he had been looking at. One was in a high-cost market, the other was in a much cheaper state. The first house looked impressive. The second one looked ordinary. But then he compared the monthly payments. The difference was big enough that he realized something. The cheaper house didn't just save him money on the purchase, it could potentially free up money every month for investing, emergencies, travel, or retirement. And that is the hidden cost of choosing an expensive location. You don't just pay more for the house, you may also give up what that extra money could have become somewhere else. Now, let's keep moving. Nebraska comes in around $275,000, Kansas around $263,000, South Dakota around $317,000, North Dakota around $279,000, Oklahoma around $237,000. And these numbers create one of the biggest surprises in the entire comparison. If you were looking only at the cheapest states, you could find median home prices around $250,000 or less. But then you cross into the Mountain West, and everything starts changing. Colorado sits above $600,000 in the Redfin state-level data, Utah is around $567,000, Montana is around $541,000, Idaho is around $481,000, Wyoming is around $410,000, Nevada is around $455,000, Arizona is around $455,000. And suddenly, the idea of simply moving somewhere cheaper becomes much more complicated, because people aren't buying houses in a spreadsheet, they're buying lives. Jobs, schools, family connections, weather, commutes, communities, and sometimes the state with the cheaper house doesn't have the job you need. That's why housing affordability is never just about home prices. It's about the relationship between home prices and everything else. And now we reach the West Coast. Oregon is around $508,000. Washington is around $606,000. California is around $785,000. And then there's Hawaii, around $779,000. At this point, you might think the answer is obvious. Just avoid the expensive states. But here's the problem. Millions of people aren't choosing between a $250,000 house and a $780,000 house as if they're items on a menu. They have jobs, parents, children, businesses, friends, entire lives built around a location. And that's why my father's old question suddenly makes more sense. Don't ask only, can I buy this house? Ask, what happens to the rest of my life if I do? Because the mortgage is only one part of the equation. And there is another number hiding behind all 50 states. A number that tells us just how different American housing really is. If you added up one median-priced home from every state using this state-level dataset, you'd be looking at roughly $19.7 million worth of houses. That's almost $20 million, just to own one representative home in every state. And yet, even that number doesn't tell the whole story, because buying the houses is only the first bill. Imagine actually owning all 50. California sends you a property tax bill, Texas sends another, Florida sends another. Then the insurance bills start arriving. The roofs need repairs, the heating systems fail, the plumbing needs attention. One house needs landscaping, another needs a new water heater. And suddenly, the $19.7 million purchase price looks like the easy part. That's the real lesson hidden inside this strange thought experiment. The cost of owning a house isn't the same as the cost of buying a house, and the difference becomes enormous when you multiply it across 50 states. My grandfather learned this the hard way. He always looked at the purchase price first, but later in life, he realized the number that mattered most wasn't the price of the house, it was how much of his income the house consumed. That's why two people can buy houses at the same price and have completely different financial experiences. One person may have a manageable mortgage, low other expenses, and room to invest. Another may have the same mortgage but higher taxes, insurance, transportation costs, and maintenance. Same house price, completely different life. And that's also why the cheapest state isn't automatically the best state to buy in. A $230,000 house can be a terrible financial decision if buying it means losing your job, moving away from your support system, or taking on costs you didn't expect. At the same time, a $500,000 house isn't automatically a bad decision if the buyer has the income, savings, and long-term stability to support it. The number alone doesn't decide the outcome. The relationship between the number and your life does. And there's one more thing worth remembering. These state-level figures are medians. They don't describe every city. They don't describe every neighborhood. They don't describe every house. California isn't one housing market. Texas isn't one housing market. Florida isn't one housing market. America itself is thousands of local housing markets sitting underneath 50 state economies. That's why one person can look at a $400,000 national median and think, that's impossible, while another person looks at the same number and thinks, that's normal. Both can be right. They're just living in different financial realities. Recent national data puts the U.S. median sale price around $399,000, while Zillow's typical home value measure is around $373,000, showing why even the definition of typical home price can change depending on the dataset and methodology. So if you ever find yourself comparing homes across states, don't stop at the listing price. Look at the mortgage, look at the interest rate, look at property taxes, look at insurance, look at maintenance, look at income, and most importantly, look at what the house prevents you from doing with the rest of your money. Because sometimes the most expensive house isn't the one with the highest price tag. It's the one that quietly takes away your ability to build wealth somewhere else. And maybe that's the strangest thing about America's housing market. The house you buy doesn't just determine where you live. It can determine how much you save, how much you invest, how much stress you carry, how early you can retire, and how much freedom you have left after the mortgage payment is gone. So if my uncle were looking at houses today, I don't think he'd ask the question he used to ask. He wouldn't say, how much house can I afford? He'd probably ask something much more important. How much of my future am I willing to spend on this house? Because the goal was never to own the most expensive home. The goal was to build a life that the home didn't financially control. And that's the difference between buying a house and actually being able to afford one. If you want more documentaries about the money decisions shaping America's future, subscribe to MSBT Finance.